I'm Karla Marie Sweet, and this is the PlayMakers Podcast, a new podcast from Box of Tricks Theatre Company that's all about platforming creative conversations with theatre makers from all parts of the industry. This episode's guest is the marvellous Lee Affen. Lee is a multi-instrumentalist composer and sound designer who has worked on an extensive catalogue of projects in theatre, dance and film. He finds inspiration in stories that need to be told and translated into impactful, challenging and accessible art. Lee has worked with a broad spectrum of companies, individuals, broadcasters, venues and organisations, including the Birmingham Royal Ballet, John Roth Omac, Utopia Theatre, the BBC, Sheffield Theatres, Theatre Clwyd and the Duke's Theatre. Lee Affen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. What an introduction.
Wow, you've done a lot. I mean, this is, a real kind of body of work that you've developed over the years. And Lee, the question that I usually ask people at the start of this podcast is why theatre? But since your work spans such a wide range of different mediums, I guess a better question for you might be why sound?
Why sound? I mean, it's a huge question, and I just go back to sound rooting us and makes sense of where we are. To go back to the question about theatre, live performance is where I feel best, and I feel my work translates the most. I feel like there's a natural synergy between live performance, sound and an audience that you don't really get with other mediums. So dance and theatre both do that so well. You can tell different stories, and so sound is about stories and telling a story. It may not be the same stories as being told on the stage, but it's how sound translates to an audience, and it gives them messages, and it's always giving me messages. Music's giving me messages. Music's giving me life and places me and roots me. So for you, I suppose in some ways it's kind of a conversation. It's absolutely a conversation. It's a collaboration. I don't think the collaboration stops when the rehearsals stop, and the collaboration carries on with the audience as well. So it's creating that collaborative element, so that the work is inside all of those people that are on that stage at that time, and it's translating beautifully to an audience, and it's speaking to them, and they're taking something in and processing something, and then they bring the audience brings their own energy, and it's a total conversation.
So speaking of that conversation with the audience, and kind of via sound giving them an impression of a sense of place, we're going to do something now that we've done on every episode of this season's podcast so far.
Wow.
Don't worry, it's not too taxing.
Is there a test?
But we've been working on audio description, and how valuable that is for particularly people who might potentially be visually impaired, or even if they're just listening to the podcast rather than watching it visually. So if you could describe what you look like and what you're wearing for our audience, that would be wonderful.
I am wearing some cord dungarees from, can I say the brand?
Yes, please do.
Lucy and Yak. Thank you very much. I'm wearing a blue shirt. I have very curly hair. It's tied back at the moment. It's a bit long, so it's getting in my eyes a little bit. I'm of mixed heritage.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. I am also wearing Lucy Yak today. I'm wearing kind of a long-sleeved green, I'd say sort of forest green jumpsuit. And underneath that, I'm wearing kind of a sort of white terracotta and blue geometrically patterned t-shirt. I'm a woman, also of mixed heritage, African American and white British. And I have long curly hair, curlyish hair that's just past my shoulders. We're in the PlayMakers space today, which is a lovely cozy space with nice exposed brick, lots of playtex around, some plants, some mind maps drawn on the wall with writing resources and favourite writing spots. So it's a really cool space to be in, and it is the Box of Tricks PlayMakers space. Now, you've worked with Box of Tricks quite a lot, haven't you, Lee? So talk to me a little bit about your journey with us.
My journey with Box of Tricks, it was quite cool, actually. I mean, I first knew a Box of Tricks it was quite a number of years ago when they started doing chip shop chips, and I lived in Lancaster, and it came through Lancaster, but I was away at the time, so I couldn't go to see it, unfortunately. And then I moved to Sheffield, and somebody got in touch with me about an associate artist role with Box of Tricks, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I didn't know what that would entail. I didn't know if I had the time to commit to something. Do
you know roughly how long ago this was?
This was 2019, maybe.
I thought you were going to say about 20 years ago. That long. 2017.
About 2019.
Okay.
I think it was just before the pandemic, or just as the pandemic was starting. It's around that sort of time. So anyway, I had a Zoom with Hannah, and it was really cool. It was really, really great just to speak about theatre. It wasn't really an interview. It was more like just a chat, really, and speak about theatre in the industry and sound and what's coming up and what we're excited about. And it felt like a good connection and a good fit. Yeah. Really pleasing to be awarded that in the first place, and then to join the Box of Tricks family, which is really cool. Which is just a really cool place to be.
And what have you worked on with Box of Tricks?
Worked on Too Much World at Once.
Yes, hold the mug up to the camera.
There we go. There we are. Too Much World at Once, which is fabulous. Billy Collins' play. Just a really, really, really great play. Great bit of writing, very astute. And when I first read the script, I thought, well, this is something I definitely want to work on. And I think that's half the thing sometimes you get offered stuff and you think, yeah, I can do a sound job on this, but actually go, I really want to work on this. It feels creative, it feels generous to design, which felt nice.
To design. And would you say that's what you're looking for when you're reading a script?
I think so. I think what happened with that play as well, design was part of the equation early on. So sound design, the physical design of the space, that was part of the conversation early on, which sometimes doesn't happen. Sometimes you just get, we need some sounds here. See you in a couple of weeks for a couple of rehearsals, and then we'll get into tech. But it was to actually go through the journey of that.
Yeah, and that's instead of sound just being an afterthought.
Instead of sound being an afterthought, which is what it does happen. It does happen. I don't tend to take those jobs though, which is, I just think that's not my kind of work. If it's not collaborative, then it's not really worth me doing.
No, I feel you on that one.
Yeah.
So let's go all the way back to the moment. Was there a moment where you first sort of thought, sound, this is for me, this is what I want to spend the rest of my life doing?
It's I suppose I came at quite a different route to a lot of people. I played guitar from when I was 6, so I've loved music for a long time. I came from a working class background as well, so theatre was never a thing in our house. We never knew about that stuff. I couldn't take music at school because not enough people took it as an option. So they just cancelled the music GCSE.
That's so sad.
It was really sad, actually.
Yeah.
But kind of luckily I was forced into doing drama, which I thought, oh no, this is my nightmare. I don't want to stand on stage and do stuff.
Yeah.
And then I ended up within that. I had a great teacher who's like an informal mentor, really.
Wow.
Called Liz Kershaw. She was absolutely amazing. I should get in contact with her and just tell her there's a massive imprint she's made on my life, huge imprint.
Wow.
And I ended up writing a play at 14, and that got published.
What?
And I was like, oh my God, this is really cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What was the name of that play?
Oh God, I can't even remember the name of the play. That's rude, isn't it?
And yet there are people in this world that have that play.
There are people in this world that will have that play in their homes. Yeah.
There are people in this world who no doubt that play has like changed their lives.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know
about that. Yeah, for the better or for the worse, we don't know. So yeah, I was thinking, okay, so I've got an outlet here. I play music and I can write a little bit. This feels something feels doable here. So then I went to Loretto College in Hume, which was again an amazing experience. I left all of my people that I knew behind because none of those want to do what I want to do. So I went on my own. I was terrified in many ways. And it was at that point that I was like, yeah, theatre. I did performing arts and theatre studies, and I thought theatre is something that is very cool. Feels like it's for me, but also there's a sound and music element that I can put into that to also tell stories. So it was around that point really that I was really like, there's a connection here.
What was it that made you think that it was for you? Was it because you'd already had like a little bit of success in terms of having a teacher that was very encouraging and obviously getting the play published? Or did you honestly look at the theatrical landscape, how it was at that point, and think, there's space for me here?
I didn't even know what the theatrical landscape was. The language of it all, I had no idea. But it was about the performative aspect and how that works with music. I was like, there's something I kind of understand here. You know, I used to have dreams about being on stage and say, somebody going to me, Prince is sick tonight, can you go on and take his place? I used to wake up in that going, oh God, I wish that was true. So,
wow. Yeah. So you really wanted to act?
I really wanted to either play guitar in something or do something. But it's, I didn't know what that was. And then I got a place at Bretton Hall when I was around.
Wow, yeah.
And it was, I got scared. I got scared and didn't go. I know.
Are you kidding?
No, and it was when university places were free.
Yeah.
So I was stupid, but I was terrified.
What was it that made you scared?
I came from a different background. I wasn't like part. I went to the. I remember going to like a day that they have there. I was like, where you could come and see how you're going to fit in and stuff. And there was lots of performances going on. There were lots of. Every room was filled with people jumping around and dancing and moving and acting and singing and playing guitar. And I was like, oh my God, this is scary. Yeah. This is scary. And I came from a background that wasn't about pushing me to do those things. So I'm like, I didn't have that support. Yeah.
So there was nobody in your family or anyone who was in the business. So.
No, exactly. And like my dad took me. My dad took me to that day, and he was scared.
Wow.
And he was So it rubbed off on me, and so I ended up not going. I went a completely different route, and was in bands.
Okay.
Did touring with bands. Did played lots of gigs. So that was my outlet at that point.
And did you do the university thing at all?
No.
Or were you just like, this isn't for me?
I just couldn't do it. It.
Wow.
I was terrified.
This is the thing. I mean, it's something that we were talking about in the episode that we did with Ella Carmen Greenhill. When we talk about nepotism, it's not just I know somebody in the business that can give me a leg up. Yeah. It's also having... first of all, even knowing that certain jobs in the business exist because you know somebody who can talk to you about that kind of thing, but also having somebody in the family that can kind of say, well, I've done it and I'm in that business, so you can do it too. So you don't need to be scared. Like you can go and do that thing. And it is, it's really...
None of my family had gone to university, so
even that...
It wasn't even a thing. Was it even a thing? And going back to what jobs exist, sound design. I mean, I never even knew that was a job.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing I'm trying to get at. How on earth did you know that it was a job? Because I wouldn't have known.
No.
I wouldn't have known. I mean, I don't think I knew until I was really deep into the theatre world, which didn't happen until kind of my mid to late 20s, really.
Yeah, I never knew. Ended up doing, what did I do? Somebody asked me to do my first job. It was like, where was it? I think it was somewhere near Glossop. There was a park and there was a Halloween event that they were doing, and they wanted some music for a bit of it, some sound effects, and they called it sound design. And I was like, oh, do you mean like sound effects? And they were going, yeah, sound design, and make it feel like a place that it feels Halloweeny. I was like, sound design. That sounds cool. I wonder what that is. And then I remember reading about it. I was like, oh, that's how I think about the world. That's how I want to make sense of the world. That's how I want to make sense of a show that I could work on, maybe. Yeah. So it's kind of like that, really.
And it's quite empowering discovering that, like, I don't know, I think maybe the idea that I had of how theatre worked was that there was a very small team of people. So, like, you know, the writer or director, probably the director, would decide on all the sound stuff.
Yeah.
And would decide on all the lighting and everything.
Yeah.
And so I used to kind of look at directing and thinking, oh my God, I could never do that, because they've got to figure out all these things. But actually that's not the case, because there are individuals who that is their sole purpose.
Yeah, totally.
And gosh, like, how would you ever manage to get a play on stage?
Yeah, totally. Oh, you couldn't.
You didn't have all of that.
You couldn't.
You know, especially one that was on such a big scale.
Yeah.
But people just don't know, do they?
No.
Like, if they don't grow up in a family that
Totally.
You know, is involved with the theatre world or knows about theatre in some way, shape or form, you're just not going to know.
Totally. I mean, we used to get tickets to the pantomime at Christmas, and we were like, this is theatre. This is amazing. This is it.
Yeah.
This is, and I'm sure that at that point, like when I got into mid-20s, if I'd have said to Mum, I'm doing a pantomime, she'd be like, oh, you've made it. You've made it.
Yeah. Ooh, get you going to the panto.
I know, in it. I think it was like
how the other half lives.
Davenport or something like that. Yeah. Don't even know where that is. I think it's in Stockport. Anyway, digress. It was it wasn't a job that I thought was a job. I didn't even know. And then when I found out, I was like, well, maybe I can do this.
Yeah. So you kind of work across various different mediums, but you also kind of fulfill lots of different roles, because not only you're a sound designer, but you're also a composer.
Yeah.
Do you feel like by becoming this kind of multi-hyphenate, you've managed to achieve kind of satisfaction through bringing all of these skills together?
It's a good question. I see them both in the same way in many ways. There could be maybe, you know, somebody may ask, can we have some like flapping wings there of a bird? And I could do that, or or there's an instrumentation can do that as well. We could get like a nice flute sound that could like, and
you can interpret it.
Yeah, to interpret it, and so they're in the same ballpark in many ways.
Yeah,
it's how sound is treated.
Yeah,
how music is treated. Yeah.
So in terms of the former, is that kind of more Foley related stuff? Do you do that kind of thing?
Yes, do that thing, and then again, it's how that is treated. So say there is, you know, I worked on a play where somebody had PTSD from World War II, and they were blind. They were in their own home, and they couldn't move anywhere really. They were scared of going outside. So I did like a sound map of the stage of their living room.
Wow.
And anytime the front door opened, cars passing by turned into tanks going past, turned into bombs going off, and then the door shut, and then that. So it's how those sounds are treated, what they turn into,
incredible.
What they can be, to transform this space into the pedestrian, into somewhere magical and tell a different story. That's how I see sound and music as well.
And you can use it so cleverly, can't you? I mean, I remember being at a festival, maybe Latitude, several years ago, and there was this like shipping container, and everyone was queuing up for this seance kind of like art piece that was going on in there. And you basically go in and there's a table and you're all sat along the table for this seance, and it's like, put your hands on the table, but you can't see anything. I can't remember whether we were wearing like an eye mask or whether it was just pitch black. And they basically just worked to scare the shit out of you using sound, but placing it in different places. So, you know, I think maybe you have earphones on. Yeah. And there's a moment where you feel like someone's whispering in your ear.
Oh, so it's like a binaural experience.
Yeah, there's a moment where you feel like the person across from you is getting like attacked.
Amazing.
And there's little knocks on various parts of the table.
Love it.
So clever.
Yeah.
You know, just the things that you can do with sound only.
Well, it stimulates imagination. Like in that instance, all the imagination about what is that? What is that? And why is it down there?
Yeah. Because it is, you know, I think people don't think about it in this way, but sound is a visual language, isn't it? Because you are trying to create a picture in people's minds.
Yeah, it's painting pictures with sound. Yeah, totally.
So in terms of like a job that you have done in the past that has ticked every box in terms of personal fulfillment, have you had it yet?
I don't know. It's a tricky one, because even the jobs that I'm like, oh yeah, I can do a job on this. I just don't tend to take those as much anymore. So I tend to take things that speak to me and I feel excited about, because otherwise I don't feel a point in putting that's for somebody else, because somebody else might feel really fired up to do that. So every job, I feel like I still learn something from every job. I'm still excited by the task and the challenge of getting a script through, or working with dancers, doing both. There's a challenge there, and there's an interpretation, and there's a brand new team to work with, and there aren't many artistic outlets out in the world where a brand new team comes together and tries to mash ideas together in a limited amount of time and produce something out of it. And that's a great challenge. So I feel excited about all of it. I don't know if there's the ultimate job. I don't know what that would look like, because there's always a new challenge.
Yeah. So what is your process? Talk me through how you approach a script and how you kind of almost deconstruct it. Yeah. And then how you turn these elements into sound.
Yeah. This is all learned stuff over time. So the more scripts you work with, the more you get a feel for the sort of dramaturgy of how a script works, and it has its own sonic language running through it. There may be a director, a writer might put in elements of the knock on the door here. We can do all that stuff. What does the knock sound like, though? That's the thing. Yes. Is somebody in their home like scared about the outside, and does the knock sound scary, or does it just sound like just a knock on the door? It's those.
And what kind of door is it?
Exactly.
Is it a wooden door? Is it a metal door?
Exactly.
What is the motivation behind the person who's knocking?
Exactly. It's all of that stuff. So breaking down all of that stuff and reading and understanding what the story is, and how reading between the lines, getting the subtext. The subtext is juicy for sound designers and composers. It's juicy. So get into that subtext, find out what that is, because that's where our playtime is. We can play in that space. No point painting the same picture twice. The writing does that. The writing's already done one thing. The actor's doing something. You may as well tell a different story that helps support and maintain focus, but it can give the audience something else to think about. So I will always look at sound as what's the pedestrian sound in all these bits? Okay, how do we change all of that? How can we bend and manipulate that to tell its own story? That's how I would approach something. And then with pulse as well, I like to play with pulse and drums and just feel like, what does pulse feel like in this bit? What's going on internally? What's going into this person's head? Is it slow? Is there a different piece of music playing? Is it completely turned on its head where people would think, oh, this is quite a dark bit. Could we change that to a very sort of maybe lift music in the background and really change?
Could it be a bit ironic?
Exactly.
Music that, you know, a la Quentin Tarantino.
Exactly.
Like.
Yeah. All of that stuff.
I love that. I love that. So I assume that you have worked on projects that have been purely sound-based.
Yeah.
Where you know that your audience is not going to have a visual reference and is completely reliant on the sound.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've worked on things where there is a very strong visual reference.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference? And if so, why?
My preference is, oh gosh, it's a tricky one. I like writing. I love writing in my studio. I've got a nice studio with lots of nice things to play. So that's always fun. But my real fun time, I feel, is when it becomes the collaborative play. And that tends to come with the visual aspect, the product of it. I mean, I'm working on a live film score at the minute.
Wow.
So I'm currently writing that, and I'm working with some Tibetan monks, and they're going to be doing some chants and singing for me. I'm going to record them in a couple of weeks and put that into the score. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But that's going to be a sonic experience with a film going as well.
Wow.
Which is another amazing aspect. Another job that you never think you're gonna be doing. But I'm doing it, and it's absolutely amazing. But without that visual element, that the sound wouldn't make the sense that it makes. No. So it's where things meet. I like where these mediums meet, and putting people in a place where there are a few things going on and each thing's telling its own story. But you remember the Channel 4 advert where it was like a 4 that turned, and then it was a 4 and then it's gone.
Yes.
I love that. Like, it just all stinks together like at one point and then goes off and smashes up and remakes itself and then does it again. So that I like it when art does that.
Yes, I do as well. We were in Mexico City quite recently, and we went to a gallery that had this incredible exhibition by this artist whose name I unfortunately couldn't tell you because it's somewhere in the annals of my mind. But he'd done this piece that was these long bits of wire that had kind of shorter sort of twisted bits of long bits of thin string with these shortish bits of wire that was sort of twisted at the bottom.
Yeah.
And if you stood in front of it kind of looking across, it wouldn't make much sense to you, but they'd shone a light on the top of it.
Stuff.
And the shadows spelt out the alphabet.
Oh, this is stuff.
And it was just...
This is the stuff, yeah.
I instantly thought of it when you were talking about that form.
Yeah.
Because there is that thing, isn't there, of like looking closer and, you know, those wires on their own are nothing. But if you add some clever lighting, then they really become something. And if that's not a beautiful metaphor for collaboration, I don't know what it is.
It's amazing, yeah. So it's so having that visual output is really... I think it's really useful. I think it's really lovely. I think it's it's the collaborative element of that.
At what point did you start to think this is something that I can genuinely make a living out of? And how did you kind of get into that space? How did you sort of establish yourself as a sound designer in this industry?
I did lots of work that I didn't want to do in my 20s, like lots of like temp jobs, which is fine, you know, which is absolutely fine. People do those things, but I was really unhappy doing those things. No. Like I feel like I've got something else to offer than turning up and just being on a computer all day, which ironically that's what I do most of the time now, in my studio.
But working on things you want to
exactly,
work on, so it changes.
It does. And then I remember just being deeply sad about it and just thinking, I'm really struggling with this. And one of my good friends offered for me to go to stay in Lancaster with them for a little bit.
Because you're from Old Trafford,
I'm from Old Trafford, yeah. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll go and hang out at theirs. And they worked at the Duke's Theatre in Lancaster.
Right.
and I met up with some of the Duke's team, and it was just really lovely. I was like, this is amazing. This is like people. I'm sort of speaking with people. You can almost reinvent yourself when you move somewhere else. You're like, this is. I can leave that sort of stuff behind a little bit and take it. It's always with me. It's always in me, but be something slightly different.
I relate to that so much.
Yeah.
I definitely had that experience when I left London 6 years ago, and there I was very much known as a radio producer. You know, I worked for Radio 1 and 1 Extra and Asian Network and Radio 4 and 6 Music, and
which
I've
is
done
great.
It for years, and it was great. And as you say, like I would never want to bury that part of my past, because it was part of my coming of age, I suppose. But I kind of, in the background, I was always writing, and I knew I wanted to do more acting, and there were all these things that I wanted to do. And then I went to drama school, and that kind of started to sort of shift. There was seismic shifts in my life, and then I moved to Manchester. And the moment I arrived, it was like, right, I'm an actor and a writer now. And that is how I will proceed from here. So I'm guessing you had a similar sort of feeling when you arrived in Lancaster.
I did. And then of course on my email sign off, I just started to put sound designer and composer. I thought, well, I'm just gonna say that I'm doing that, and then
I love that. Yes.
Do you know, just like I think this is the sort of this is the honesty that the industry needs, because otherwise it's just all about the language of it all, which I had no idea about. I just go to meetings and be like, I don't know what people are talking about, and it's stuff that you pick up on, and you think, okay, you start to build a little vocabulary, and you start to participate in the meetings more than just sitting there. And now meetings for me, that's fine, and it's a good space, and it's a creative space, and it's about sharing, and there's a lot of respect in the meetings. But at the time, I was scared. Again, I felt a bit like the Bretton Hall situation. I was like, God, is this something I can do? But I just thought, I'm just going to plow on. I'm going to try my best and go for it. I've been given an opportunity here to break the cycle that I was in Manchester and kickstart something. And I ran with it, absolutely ran with it.
I just love the fact that you just claimed it as your own.
Yeah.
Because so many of us wait for permission to feel like we can call ourselves certain things.
Yeah.
Like, the number of friends that I've had that are much younger than me that have written things on Twitter or on Instagram like aspiring actor or aspiring writer. I'm like, stop calling yourself aspiring.
You are
if
that.
you want to do it, just do it. If you are already doing it, you are that. So don't use words like that.
Exactly.
Because it completely, you're kind of putting yourself down by doing it. Yeah. And I also think that there's that thing of the goalposts getting wider. At what point do you feel like you have legitimized yourself enough to call yourself a certain thing? Like even, when I started getting into writing, it took me such a long time to feel like I could call myself a writer. Yeah. And I remember saying, I'll call myself a writer when I've had my first paid job. And then I got my first paid job, and I was like, maybe when I get an agent. And then I got an agent, and I was like, maybe when I get a TV credit. And then I got a TV, and it just went on and on and on until eventually I just had to go, get a grip.
Yeah, totally.
You're a writer.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you didn't wait for anyone else to give you permission to call yourself what you knew yourself to be.
I just did it because I thought I'm just going to go for it. Nobody else is going to hold my hand at this point. I'm kind of on my own. I'm just going to just push and push and push. And now I think, I see that on my email sign off, and it makes me smile still. It makes me smile. But I find it also reductive in many ways, because there are so many things that we do when we're in a rehearsal room. They go beyond that. The collaborative aspects. I love that. In fact, we all know a little bit of each other's jobs and experience from other jobs that we've worked on, and we can all speak up and go, how about we try this? Or somebody says to me, how about I try this in the sound? And it's like, I love all those conversations. I love them all.
So of course you are so capable of working in lots of different mediums. You've done work for telly, you've done work for film, but obviously theatre is your biggest love. Yeah. What do you think the future of theatre looks like, or what do you think it could be? Because at the moment, it's not in a great place, is it?
It's not in a great place. It's not in a great place, and I've got it's a tricky one, because I've got friends that work in music, where I think they're just concerned about their jobs being taken by AI. I'm like, wow. This is a terrible terrible state of affairs. They don't work in theatre. I'm like, this is awful. And for once, I'm thinking, actually, theatre is in a different space because we always love seeing people. We have to see people. This is the live art. This is where we connect. This is why we do it, and this is why stories matter. And I think we have to really plow on with stories that matter. I think companies like Box of Tricks, amazing, a new writing company. Yeah. It's golden. It's golden, and they do it so well. And stories matter. And to write stories that connect with people, we need those stories, and they'll never dry up. There's no chance they'll dry up. There's always going to be something to fight against. There's always going to be something to stand up for other people against. Yeah. And theatre is the only medium really that can really go direct to the heart of that, I think. Yeah. And film does that as well. But theatre, seeing people act in front of you, that can never go. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Dance the same as well. There's nothing like. Gosh, dancers work hard. Yes. And to see that hard work and how they interpret the world, and body language tells us more about a situation than vocals does. Yeah. So like to have live performance, put dance in there as well, because it's absolutely amazing.
It's a language beyond words, isn't it? And that's so necessary in a world that can kind of be a bit superfluous, I suppose, when it comes to language.
Totally.
And it's hard to find the words sometimes, isn't it? And so dance can really, just drive home a story in a totally different way.
Yeah, you can shift time and space very fast in dance, which I really love. Again, Juicy is a sound designer composer. You can shift time, transitions, everything in dance. Whereas in theatre, sometimes transitions are, okay, shuffle on to the next scene.
Turn a page to show the time has passed.
Totally. With dance, that's the juice.
Yeah, it really is.
That's the juice.
Yeah, I really believe that synovial fluid is kind of like, getting the synovial fluid moving is how we get the soul moving, how we wake the soul up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit before we started the podcast about accessibility. And it's also something that's been kind of a running theme on this season of the podcast. Yeah. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what you have observed within the theatre world, what you've experienced yourself in terms of accessibility, and what your hopes and dreams are for the future of theatre in terms of accessibility specifically.
Well, this is a big one for me personally, but I'll go back to prior to how I was affected. It wasn't really something in the rehearsal space that I would have thought about as much. And then I worked with a company called Lisa Simpson Dance, and she has her own dance board and non-verbal communication, and she can choreograph a dance piece just with this dance board that she's got, and somebody else interpreting her
what does this dance board look like? It's
got lots of different movement languages on there, and she's created this, and it interprets her thinking through an interpreter, and then dance pieces are created. I was like,
that's insane. Wow.
Oh my God. This is
so cool.
It's really cool. It's really, really cool. I was very lucky to work with her on that. She's got so many ideas about music, and we conversed through an interpreter, and I was like, this is wonderful. This is wonderful.
Does she move herself, or is it purely her imagination?
It's purely what she's got.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. If you get a chance to work with her at any point,
that feels like the future, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
That to me is what the future.
It does. It's like I just thought, there's a door that's open. I was like, oh my God, I want to go in here, because that's really cool.
This is what's possible.
Yeah, totally. So then, I was aware of accessibility at that point in a big way, and then I had an operation that went wrong, and I was off my feet for 2 years.
Wow.
And it was during COVID time as well, so getting hospital and doctor's appointments was just, it was hard work. It was all hard work to manage, and hard work for my partner as well.
She was cracking the whip.
Yeah, totally. And it was just hard work, but and then I had another operation to reverse that operation. It's left me with injuries. So getting into workspaces became a thing that was difficult. It was just difficult carrying stuff. I got like gear. I got, I can return to a rehearsal room with guitars and keyboards and all sorts of things.
And so many of these old venues they've got stairs.
Because
they're old. And nobody's really done anything about the fact that they're quite inaccessible.
And you can't park outside. You can't park outside and unload your gear. There's a lot of places that are like that. So now I'm very aware of these places. So now I have to send an email beforehand to the company I'm working with. Can we arrange for a team of people to help me out of my car with my stuff? Because it's painful. But
again, even being able to send that email, feeling confident that you can say, look, this is what I need in order to do the job to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
That requires a certain confidence,
it does.
Doesn't it? And a certain bravery.
It does.
And some people, particularly people who are not established in the industry, are just starting out, would go, oh God, I can't send that email. I'm just going to have to manage, and they'll manage through the pain, which is just appalling, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I completely understand what you're talking about there with confidence, and that carries through with all sorts. But what we were talking about before about how you speak up in a meeting, how you speak up to a tech team at a theatre and say, actually, can I have a speakers over there, please? Yeah, and it's the little things like that. But going back to accessibility, it's changed massively as well. There's a in every contract now, there's an accessibility form that comes through with it, and you can list the things that will help you do the job to the best of your ability. Fill that in. Fill it
Seriously.
in. Yeah, do it. Yeah. If you need help, it doesn't take away from you being an artist. It'll help you be the artist that you want to be, and you're not causing any problems. People want to help.
And I think what you also have to bear in mind is that people want you and what you have to offer, and the unique gifts that you have to offer. You know, like Lisa Jackson, was it?
Lisa Simpson.
Yeah. With Lisa Simpson as
I know.
How did I not pick up on that before? Like Lisa Simpson.
Yeah.
The choreographer.
Yeah.
Not the saxophone playing Simpson. I mean, like, what is in her mind?
Yeah.
You're unlikely to ever find another mind like that, and so she offers such a unique perspective on dance and the world and creativity, and we wouldn't be able to get that gift if we didn't provide an accessible situation for her to provide that gift.
Exactly.
So we want your gifts. So fill in the form and send the riders, and don't be afraid to do that. And I think I've really learned from other artists to do that myself. I remember when I first started out working for Box of Tricks, an actor sent their rider in, and I read it, and it was really long. It was like 4 pages long, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah. I can't believe they've sent this. Yeah. But then the other part of me was like, I can't believe you can send this. Why haven't I been sending this? And now I understand, I got diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago. Now I really understand what I need, and I've started to kind of ask for what I need with that. It's also started, getting me thinking about kind of like my mobility needs as well. Like, even just asking ahead, like, are there loads of stairs in your building? What, how do you provide a level of accessibility for people who struggle with stairs in various different ways? And it's been quite liberating.
Yeah, it is liberating. It is liberating because it's another part of you that can step into your power, which is what we all want, isn't it? And we all thrive in that state. Yeah. As with flow state, as with all those states that make us feel good and makes us feel like we're moving through life without those obstacles. This is another one where you can step into your power. So fill that in.
And it's all part and parcel of living authentically. Really, isn't it?
It is.
So what is the big piece of advice that you would give to somebody who wants to be a sound designer? Or even a composer?
Yeah. If you play an instrument, keep playing, practice, be interested in the world, be interested. Sound roots us. It's all around us. We're in a sonic landscape all the time. I can hear out there's a main road, and I can hear cars going past, and that's, if I shut my eyes, I know where that is. I can place that around my head. So enjoy that. Close your eyes. Do a test, like write things down that you can hear. And if you really listen, you'll hear so many things, so many different things.
Nothing will make you more alert to different sounds, quite like being a radio producer or a sound designer, going into a room, having to do an interview like this one. And going, I can hear someone talking 2 rooms away. Am I going to need to tell them to shut up? Or I can hear a car outside.
Totally.
Do I need? Is there any padding I can put on the windows?
Totally.
That necessity. Leads to such a deep level of like, I can hear every single noise.
Exactly. It's anxiety inducing.
It really is.
It is. I know my studio is in my house, in my attic, and it's fantastic. But sometimes that a van will go past as I'm recording. The best guitar part I've ever recorded with the microphone. Like, this is amazing. It feels great, and I can hear.
Oh no.
But yeah.
Oh God. The first season of this podcast, we recorded most of it in the bleak midwinter.
Okay, yeah.
And there was a heater we're in a room not totally dissimilar to this one, but it didn't have carpet. And there was a heater in the corner that we would have to put on before we did the interview.
Oh gosh.
And then hope that the heat would remain for as long as possible. And towards the end of the chat, we'd be shivering, but we couldn't turn it back on because you could hear it in the background.
See, memories, sound has memories.
It does, it really does.
It was even bad memories. But just play your instruments. And if you can't play an instrument, get a little recorder. Get like a Zoom recorder or something like that, and go out and record stuff, record textures, record sounds. If you're walking through the park, record your feet walking. Get a piece of software where you can manipulate that stuff and make it sound reverby or delayed or any of these things. Have fun with it. Have fun with like playing with what sound can do and what sound makes you imagine. Once you put it into your computer space, once you put it into your DAW. I use Ableton, which I love. Logic, Pro Tools, all these things, just fantastic. Once you put it in there and you manipulate it, think about what it makes you imagine when you hear that sound with different textures. Start building layers of textures of sound. And if you play instruments, amazing. Get some instrumentation going with those found sound elements, and that's just heaven. That's beautiful.
And even just using all that, even using kind of the most basic found sound. You could write your own little radio play.
Oh, absolutely.
Get a friend to, even if it's just a two-hander, with you and your friend.
Yeah.
And, you find all these sounds, and maybe one of you can play an instrument, so you can have little musical
absolutely.
interludes. And, in terms of like lo-fi creating something, telling a story, that requires the least amount of kind of resources and financing,
really does.
Doesn't it?
It really does. And that's leads on to the second point of the advice. Collaborate, find people to collaborate with. That's just, it's amazing. People want to do stuff. Somebody might have a camera and think, and make a short film, and you might say, okay, we can put some sound in that, some music in that. Collaborate, see what you can make together, because it's those sorts of things that helps you build up your toolkit and your vocabulary, and you might come to things in an unorthodox way, like I did, but still, I just always love collaborating. So that for me is the key. Collaborate, practice instruments, play with sound, play with tools that we have around us. Your phone, you can record so many things on your phone.
Yeah, and they're pretty good as well, actually.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good now.
Yeah.
Yeah, play with that stuff, and don't don't listen to the haters. just ditch them. You know, I remember I just met some strange people. I remember speaking to a theatre director who asked me, so Lee, how do we get the brown people and black people through the door of the theatre? And I'm like,
wow,
why are you asking?
Don't single them out when they arrive.
Don't single out them. And why are you asking me? So things like that, those things may happen.
Yeah.
Just
drown them out with your
sounds. Them out. Turn the sound up. So yeah, but you know, trust your instincts, trust yourself, because that situation didn't feel good. It felt scary. So trust your instincts. Don't think, oh, anybody's got power over you. You have power. You're in it. You're an artist. You're playing, and it feels lovely.
Love that. Lee Affen, thanks for being such a wonderful guest. You can follow Lee on Twitter at Affen Audio and Box of Tricks on Twitter at BOTTC or on Instagram at Box of Tricks Theatre. You can find me at Karla M Sweet on both platforms and now also on Substack at karlamariesweet.substack.com. If you enjoyed listening, tell your friends, share on your socials and of course subscribe. I'll see you next time.